People often ask me, John, tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from. And I know that in the course of telling these speeches, the people that are watching them, many of them are personal friends, people that have known me for the years that I've lived in Lakeland, Florida. I can tell you that I've lived in this area for about 43 years. There was a period of time just after I married my wife, Donna, when I was working for a retail corporation and I was assigned to work as an assistant store manager at a store in a city in North Carolina, a small town, but it was just north of a major metropolitan center in the state of North Carolina. You have to understand that this was just after I graduated from college. My wife, Donna, who is a native of Florida, I met her while I was in college going to school, and we were married after I finished college. She never did get her degree. She went to college a total of 3 years. She would have eventually earned a bachelor's in the area of business management or business administration, but instead she took a bachelor and turned him into a husband and got herself an MRS degree, as we sometimes say. And that's a little bit of lightheartedness, and that's a phrase that's pretty worn out in this day and age. Once we moved to Florida, and I made the choice to move to Florida because I felt Florida was where I had the greatest opportunity to connect in doing things that would make me successful, find the work that I wanted to do, and most importantly of all, I really had this desire to start over again. Some of you who may have read chapter 1 of my book, I Never Noticed, My Journey Through Alzheimer's with Mom, know the story of my freshman year in college. The young man that was in college as a freshman in 1969 already was undergoing a transformational process, because as a child and then as a middle school adolescent into the high school adolescence period, I had gifts and abilities, but my problem was that I was socially not very well trained. Now, there are people out there in the world, psychologists and social scientists, who will say, John, you did not have good parents. Excuse me? I had fabulous parents, and socially, they were remarkable. My problem as a child, and this is the problem with any child, is that too often we're just wrapped up in being young. And when you're wrapped up in being young, you really don't pause to study things all that closely. Having said that, there were certain things that happened in my life that I still remember from my childhood. I remember being in the hospital and having my tonsils removed. I remember falling down a flight of stairs when we were visiting friends at their house, and I saw a door as a precocious child, and I wanted to open it to see what was in there, and all I saw was darkness, and I thought, this is a dark closet, let's go in and see what I can find. And the problem was, I found myself stepping on what I thought was going to be a solid floor, and instead I fell down a flight of wooden stairs into the basement and fractured my skull. This was as a child. Now, that was a frightening and alarming moment in my life for my parents. I just remember opening the door and seeing darkness. I don't remember much after that. By the way, do you know, to this day, every time I share the story of falling down a flight of stairs and fracturing my skull, my friends say, finally, we have the answer to why you behave the way you do. And I just smile and say, that's the way friends are supposed to be. I remember in 1963, as a 13-year-old, arriving at junior high band practice on a school bus, because junior high band practiced at the high school band room. And I remember as we were getting off the bus, there was a person holding a copy of the afternoon newspaper, the Chattanooga Free Press. And it had a front page cover telling us that John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States, was dead. That day was the day that he was shot in Dallas, Texas, near the school book depository. I remember as a teenager the day that Martin Luther King was shot in Memphis during the solid waste workers, the garbage truck drivers and workers strike. I remember when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated at the hands of Sirhan Sirhan while in the Roosevelt Hotel in Los Angeles, California during the California primary. And there have been so many, many other things I failed to mention. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, which took place in the early part of President Kennedy's administration before he was assassinated. And I remember my mother and father distinctly talking as we were going to the car one evening after being with my grandparents. I remember them saying we could have nuclear war. And the specter of atomic bombs was large in our minds as children because they talked of civil defense and nuclear attacks and the carnage of an atomic war that could literally destroy the world. When you're a child, these are the sorts of things that leave an indelible impression upon your mind. Everything that happens for a reason. It's part of the process of development, education, conditioning. Your value system begins to be formed and molded. Your judgments begin to develop. But the thing that I struggled with through high school was that as much as I wanted to be accepted, because I seemed different, I was not accepted. And then when I would try to force myself into relationships, I would wind up alienating myself all that much more. I did too much talking, not nearly enough listening, and all I did was talk myself into trouble, and that's where I learned to talk myself out of trouble, or simply learn how to turn around and run away before trouble could catch me. College began the change, and in that first chapter entitled Glimmer, I realized that there was something more to me, but that in order for me to be that someone, I needed to change my surroundings. And that brings me to the principal point in this message. I chose to move to Florida. It felt right, it felt good, and it was good for my wife because it was better for her to be near her family and the people that she grew up with, and it gave me an opportunity to start fresh. And not a lot of us get a chance to start fresh. For me, even with still the need to mature, to become better equipped to do more, to learn my gifts and to apply them, to learn how to build relationships, and most of all, to learn how to be a good husband and a good parent. The opportunity happened to me when I came to the state of Florida. It wasn't because it was Florida, it was because it was the place that I was destined to be at. The change, I will look back to this day and say the greatest day of my life, at least the beginning of the transformation of my life, to bring me to the point that I am here today talking to you, was that day in February of 1975 when I had packed a U-Haul truck and we took our AMC Javelin, that was the car, and Donna and I, with a kitty cat in her lap named JJ, drove to Lakeland, Florida, where she was born and raised, and with the help of her wonderful father and mother, we were able to find a place to live that was comfortable, and we began to put down roots. Today, those roots bear fruit. The fruit of friends, the fruit of life lessons, the fruit of spiritual awakening, physical awakening, emotional awakening, mental and cognitive awakening. Lessons that have equipped me for this time. Some would say, John, you're 66 years of age as the date of this recording, and that is true. Why such a late start? Well, we all start towards our dream when we're ready. Some of us start sooner, others start later. I don't say to myself, I wish I had known this 20 or 30 years ago. It serves no purpose. The purpose that I live for is that I have today. Therefore, today, I need to be sure that friends like you know who I am and why I do what I do. And that what I'm giving to you is the talents that were God-given to me. And one of those talents was to communicate. I talked a lot when I was growing up, and anybody that knows me knows I talked too much. And even today as a distinguished Toastmaster, that DTM can stand for does talk more. Or, if I'm being timed, don't time me. But that's not the point. The point is, if I have something to say something that you can benefit from. Say something that will help you. Or say something that will plant a seed that will help you to be able to cope with the situation that comes into your life someday. Whatever you do, don't ignore the information, because the information is not about me. It's about what I want to give to you that you can use in your life. Knowledge is power. Power gives you some degree of control, but you don't want to use that power to control people. You want to use that power to control your decisions and control your life and achieve the destiny that you were created to achieve. It doesn't matter what your age is. The time to start changing and doing something wonderful for yourself and others is now. So join me in this quest. We'll keep talking. Until next time, John Morrow. So long.